Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. When we are reflecting, when we are thinking about what we have heard, there are many pitfalls that we can fall into. How come today none of you all are putting on your, I have nobody here to look at only. I feel like I'm talking to a blank screen. Thank God. Some familiar faces. What about the rest of you? We are so few today, you can put it on. I think our internet will hold all that. Have you raised your hand to ask a question, Deepraj? No, go ahead.
This is just a general question. What's
Mhm.
the significance of rituals, like religious rituals, in the spiritual path?
What's the significance? The human mind is always distracted by things happening in the world. So, what religious masters did is they used many methods by which you bring the mind back. So, festivals are one of them, and other rituals where you bring the mind back. You bring the mind back. So, when Diwali comes, you think of Rama. Then Kali Puja comes, you think of Kali. And the rest of the year, forgotten all about her. So, so this is what has been inculcated in our system. Like they say, prayer before meals. So why do you do that? Remember God. So all the time they give you these little interruptions in whatever you're doing so that the mind can trace its origins back. That's the purpose of the ritual. Now the way the ritual, each ritual is formulated also expresses the same idea, like a yajna, for instance. It teaches us cooperative endeavor, as you have already studied. So each part of it is like that. Each part, it brings the mind back. And in this process, it's not a stupid way of just bringing it back, but there's all this beauty and symbolism and all that put into each ritual. If it's a marriage ritual, then what is it that you are promising? I mean, now nobody knows any of it because Sanskrit is not known and the rituals continue to be in Sanskrit. Nobody bothers to learn Sanskrit. So you don't know. You go, there's a massive marriage ceremony, you're bored through it largely, or you're busy eating whatever they give you to eat. But actually it's a very beautiful thing if you are actually paying attention. It is promising. What are you promising? One of the things men don't know when they are promising in that marriage is to fulfill all the desires of their wives. They don't know this. I don't think even the wives know that they're actually promising this. So every time any they don't, you can always say, you had promised me this. So, I mean, what all is each one's role is, what all they have to do, all of that is uh, so each ritual has its own little story going on, of course, based on what that ritual is about. And then the major issue is bring the mind back to God. But now nobody knows this. So Diwali is now not about drama and about God. It's about gambling, parties,
Patake,
pataka.
patake.
It's all, the point sort of goes away. But
And they're made very intricate, like
yeah.
this very, very particular steps that you have to do. That is to bring the intellect into the picture.
No, it is like if you're going to do something, then there's a whole sort of symbolism behind it. Like the prayer, what are you saying in that prayer? Is one very, very, very. I mean, I'm just amazed at how beautifully they do it. the Aarti, one of the prayers in the Aarti is this Jyoti. This is what it's saying. It's an Upanishadic verse. The Jyoti cannot light. The sun cannot light you. What will this Jyoti do? That's what you're saying as you do the prayer, I mean, not that anyone knows it, because basically it's telling you it's not the Murti outside, it's something inside. So all the philosophy is entrenched in it somehow. And, if it's for every reason that if it's set up for some reason. Now that reason is gone and all the mechanical actions are going on. So the intricateness is because somebody has set it up, some wise person set it up with some thought. Like, when we did the retreat, for instance, there was a course. I mean, there was a daily schedule that became the ritual. But there's a reason why you're doing that, right? Swamiji has said, okay, this first and this first and this, whatever his general idea is. And if you understand it, you understand how every aspect is sort of designed to sort of make our personality grow. So every ritual is something based on something. I mean, it depends on the ritual, of course, but there's always some idea behind it.
Thank you so much.
Taruna?
I have a question from the last class. With over analysis, it is the difference to over analysis. So when we are overthinking, we are trying to reflect, and it's a mistake in overthinking. So I just want to know that is it a mind-led thing? Your mind takes over when you overthink.
Of course, anything in excess is mind. This is a problem that is always there. That mind is desire, correct? Desires can be physical, emotional, intellectual. So you can get involved at any level of the personality. Like a person can get involved in mathematics or chess just as much as he can get involved in eating, right? The involved part is the mind. Eating is done by the body, chess is played by the intellect, but the mind's involvement is the mind's involvement. That's of the mind.
So how come because eating is relating to body, your body needs food, but how means just want to get into the technicality of it. How does mind get involved? It's the pleasure out of eating.
Yeah.
Okay. So in any situation, like if you're be it a chess, be it eating food, or be it any emotional thing, so it is always a pleasure part which keeps you involved, which is the mind driven.
Yes, pleasure is only one aspect. There's pleasure, there's fear, there's greed, there's indiscipline, there's delusion, the whole gamut of. But it's stemming from the need for pleasure.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Okay, so we can make many errors in our attempts to think. The first error which we can do is this trying to think beyond our capacity. When we start thinking beyond our capacity, we start making many, many mistakes in it. There is no point for a kg standard person to start reflecting on E is equal to mc squared. It makes no sense. And when they start reflecting, they'll come up with their own fantastic permutations and combinations of that thing. I mean, they will do it through their head, right? So it'll be the most, if you're evolved, cute, and if you're not so involved, irritating thing to hear their sort of interpretation of something that is absolutely beyond them to do. So when we start going beyond, like suppose suppose there's a chicken can only fly so much. Its ability is to fly so much. A pigeon can fly a little higher. An eagle can soar into the high heavens. Now, if this chicken tries to go up like the eagle, it will come crashing down. It won't be able to sustain that flight. It can't do it. It doesn't have the ability. So we have to ourselves know what we are currently capable of thinking and what we are not currently capable of thinking. As human beings, we can grow our power to think. Like the KG class student can one day be doing their PhD in physics. That is a possibility, but not today. Today, you have to know what you can do and what you cannot do. Otherwise, there is too much confusion. Is that clear? So what would you do? You would overanalyze. Overanalyze means you break it up into things that it ought not to be broken up into. Why are you breaking it up into this thing? Going beyond the capacity. So overanalysis is the first way. So when you overanalyze, what can you do? How would you tackle this problem?
Step back and look at the larger picture.
Very good. You go to the opposite ability which you have. You also have an ability for synthesis. So look at the larger picture. See the picture rather than going deeper into that thing. Taking a step back usually helps when you're unnecessarily analyzing, like baal ki khal nikalna, like that. Like, what is the point and where have you reached? So then come back, step back. I mean, we have to be able to understand that we are doing this. Now, nobody can tell us. When somebody tells us you're doing it, then we will say, who do you think you are? You don't know anything. I'm doing this perfectly. So we are not going to listen to anyone. So it's for us, ourselves, to understand, am I over analyzing, in which case I should take a synthetic or a synthesis, make a synthesis, see the whole picture. Now, you may say, how will I know whether I'm over analyzing or not? Okay, so do it go back and forth between the analysis and the synthesis, so that you're in the general full picture at least. You can go back and forth just to make sure that you're not going in excess anywhere. Then wrong analysis. Wrong analysis is when you make all sorts of you come to all sorts of conclusions from an intelligent person doesn't really quite get how did you reach those conclusions. But to ourselves, when we do it, it seems very rational. In fact, it is very difficult, It is extremely difficult for us to know whether we're thinking correctly. And it's never going to be easy. And of course, since we're talking about thinking, this book is about thinking. It is all about how to think correctly, right? So we're saying, okay, this is the wrong way, this is the right way. But actually, none of this is going to work. If you really want to think properly, I mean, of course, this will work, but step one has to happen. Before you even come into any of these cautions, maybe that should have been written here also. You know what? If you want to be a good thinker, the very first thing that anybody will have to do?
Humility.
Okay. The first thing, the very first thing, objectivity.
Know that you don't have the complete facts.
Observer.
Okay. You see, even as you think about it, you're still thinking about your thoughts only. Whatever thing you have said, humility or observer or any one of them is still about your thoughts. But the first way of thinking correctly is not in thoughts at all. It is in Deepraj.
Facts.
Okay. Deepraj, it is in?
Unselfishness.
It is in? I'm
Morning
asking you
studies.
because you had this conversation not very long ago. The first way to think correctly has got nothing to do with thinking. It is to do with first way.
Whenever you say first, I always think of morning study.
That is correct. Okay, chalo, morning study, I grant you. Second way, then. You know, the primary way to think correctly is got nothing to do with thinking. It is the intellect's capacity to govern the action. If you cannot engage your intellect to choose the right action, you're never going to be able to think clearly. Now you will say, how will I do right action unless I think clearly? Thinking clearly is what we are taking as a development of the thinking capacity itself. But if you don't use the thinking capacity which you already have, if you don't apply it at the grossest level, there is no way this is going to be applied at the subtle level. It is like if we cannot hit on the board, how are you going to ever hit the bullseye? Hoga hi nahi. So if we have to think correctly, we have to train ourselves to first do right action. Now you'll say, how do I know right action if I don't think correctly? We all know. As much as we need to know right action, we know it. Who doesn't know that they have to exercise every day? Who doesn't know what is good food and bad food? Who doesn't know that they should not be shouting at somebody if they get angry? Who doesn't know all this? Everybody knows it. But you have to do it right. Only once you do that right will you be able to set the thinking right. Now you start thinking clearly means you can do much more than that. Not just this. You're going to do way more. And that's when you become this high achiever or, a person of great character or whatever it is. That's the higher abilities we are going into. But where is the question of higher abilities until we are able to deal with our action? And you will see in your life, as everybody sees, that most of us, most of the time, take an action and then justify why it is correct. Very few people first think and choose an action. It's a very, very rare phenomenon to find a person who thought and chose. They choose and think. Either to justify their actions or somehow to get out of their problems. One very cute man, he's a sort of a patron. He's not a student of Vedanta, but he's interested in the cause and he always wants to do something to help. Not that he has done anything, but he's always very enthusiastic about wanting to help. So he's very cute. He told me he'll do X, whatever, some suggestion. I'm not telling you that because then somebody's going to know who I'm talking about and we will start gossiping. We're not gossiping, we're only understanding the facts. So he told me, do X. So as you know, we have to start collecting facts, determining whether it's worthy of being doing or not. So he's telling me, no, don't worry, you just start. Just start. How can you just start? Telling me to take some international actions, and he's saying, no, just start. We have done that. He's telling me, we do that. We start all this. We do it internationally, and then then later on some law comes, we get into trouble, and we keep sorting out the problem. So thank you very much. I will rather find out what the problem is first and then go about, instead of sorting. See, you have to think. Either you think before the action or you think after the action. So please, I would prefer to think before the action instead of thinking so much after the action. So very few people think before the action. They think after the action. Either they justify their action or they solve whatever problem they have created. But if you do it before, A stitch in time saves 9. Instead of thinking so much later on, if you're a lazy person, just think before. It's not worth the trouble afterwards. Right? So if we want to get our thinking right, we have to begin by getting
actions right.
Our actions right.
very good. Your actions are only right. Now you forget about figuring out whether I'm over analyzing. No, you'll never figure this out unless you've learned to do right action. Because gross has to be conquered before the subtle can be conquered. If we can't recognize gross dirt, how will we recognize subtle dirt? If we don't understand gross music also, we've not been able to understand कि ये music है. Then what were you going to understand कि classical music है? हो ही कैसे सकता है? It's not possible, right? So gross has to be conquered. So learn first to do what according to you is right. And then you can come to this as, am I over analyzing? Then it will start becoming clear. And if you find yourself over analyzing, shift over to synthesis. And to just be safe, keep shifting between these two methods so that you're not going wrong. Yeah, Reshmi.
So when you say that we will never know what we are thinking is right, so that would apply for the correct thought also, right? Even if I'm thinking a correct thought, I will still not know that this is right or not. I may still be in doubt.
No, I didn't say you won't know. I'm saying that nobody's going to know anything 100%. At every stage, there will be something unknown. That's just the nature of human existence. But how much you don't know, how confused you are, will vary at different levels, right? So at every stage, there's always going to be some aspect which you don't know or which you're wrong about and you think you're right. Always there'll be that thing. That's why
So
humility is a big thing. No?
I'm sorry, what is a big thing?
Humility.
Okay, but now suppose we have to decide to take the right action to get clearer in thinking. But even if it is a right thought, I don't know if it is a right thought. So, but I still should execute it.
No. See, there are levels of this. So do you not know that you have to exercise every day? You know this, right? You know what food you have to eat. You know what exercise you have to do. You know the time you should sleep, the time you should get up. All this, what should I say? This level we know. The level which we know we must execute.
Okay. So then the ones which are then the ones which are more they'll get clearer with time then.
Yes. Remember that example of the car's headlights?
Yeah, 100 meters and then more 100 meters. Okay, got it.
10 meters. You'll see a little ahead. Yeah, Taruna.
So every time we are over analyzing, we are replacing the action by thinking.
Yes, of course. Over means you're doing too much. Now your time is only 24 hours in the day. So where have you taken that time from? From what you should have been doing. That's a no. Omkar, you got your answer, but to get the actions right, don't we need to think right? You got your answer?
Yes. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes, I got the answer. Thank you.
Okay, so first wrong way of thinking is over-analysis. Second wrong way which we did was wrong analysis, where you just analyze in such a way that किसी को पता ही नहीं चल रहा कि ये आया कहाँ से. So it sounds absurd to everybody else, but to us it sounds correct. So what do? How do you deal with that when you're over? See, it's so tough, right? You don't know that you're wrongly analyzing. So what will you do to ensure that you're on the right track?
Go back to first principles.
Go back to?
First principles.
Go back to the facts. Look at.
I didn't hear you, Deepraj. Last two words I cannot understand.
First principles.
First principle. Is that what you said? Ah, okay. Mm-hmm. Go back to the facts is close, but don't put it like that because facts is can be perception also. So
Get back to the ground reality.
check whether that is true. If your analysis is true, then that is how it should be, right? I mean, in the world, in actual physical objects, it should be like that. So
Could you give
remember sorry?
Didn't get this one. Could you give an example?
Remember the one about Johnson's example about that man saying 70% of Earth, there's no place to cultivate. Why not? 70% of the Earth is made of water. Then 30%, 29%, whatever, what was it? Then 25% cannot be cultivated, like deserts and mountains and things like that. Then the rest is made up of man-made things like cities and things like that. So where is the place to cultivate? It seems cultivation is impossible on Earth. Okay, now you have analyzed like this, let us say. Now, how will you know whether your analysis is correct or wrong?
Because it is being cultivated.
Yeah, obviously,
That's not reality.
we'll all be dead if there was no cultivation, right? So we are alive. That means there is cultivation. Therefore, that analysis cannot be wrong. So check it with the ground reality. Check whether that's really what is there. And that's one way of knowing whether my analysis is on the wrong track. You check it with actual physical phenomena. Yeah. And if you can make a prediction with it. So there's no cultivation, therefore there will be no human beings. Because how will human beings survive if there are no cultivation, right? But are there human beings? Yes, they are. Therefore, there has to be cultivation. Therefore, my analysis cannot be correct. So you can even make a prediction and see whether that prediction comes true. If the prediction comes true, your analysis was right. So, in other words, match it to physical objects, physical phenomena. Is that physical phenomena happening? If it's happening, you're good. Clear? Pravesh, you're not looking okay. Pravesh, you're not looking happy with this whole idea. Are you okay? Or is it that your thing is frozen? Okay. Okay, Reshma.
Actually, I'm trying to understand. There are a lot of questions coming in my mind. So I'm trying to understand with the examples that you are giving me. Like I'm thinking about one condition, like if we are thinking right, how we will be able to understand means thinking right as per the situations in front of us. Means we are analyzing the situation rightly, then accordingly we take the actions. It means like that, thinking rightly.
If you're analyzing the situation correctly, then whatever your analysis is should fit the ground reality, should fit an actual physical phenomenon. For instance, suppose you say, my principal is very hot tempered. Suppose you say this, okay, and he's so it should fit an actual phenomenon. A very hot tempered person should lose his temper at least twice or thrice a day. So is this happening? Are you seeing him losing his temper twice or thrice a day? if you are seeing this, then it's fitting an actual physical phenomenon. So that way you're good. But suppose you say he's very hot-tempered, and then when is the last time you saw him lose his temper? In July 2022. Then it's not correct, right? Once a year, you won't call it very hot-tempered. So now you say, oh, so what people do is, oh, he's very hot-tempered. Okay. And therefore, all the staff members are leaving. And check, when you say all the staff members are leaving, how many have left? What is the normal turnover? Is this any more than what is normally there? Every organization will have some employee turnover. Na? So is this more or less? So you match it to actual physical phenomenon. My husband is very conjuice. He never gives me any money. Okay, suppose. Okay, so very conjuice, he doesn't give me any money means what? That means he doesn't give me enough money for me to run the house. Okay, so does everybody in the family have enough food to eat? Yes, they've all got enough food to eat. Do they have enough clothes to wear? Yes, they have enough clothes to wear. Then do you go out, say, once, I don't know, whatever you want, whatever, some reasonable amount, once a week or once in 2 weeks? Yes, we go out. Then now where is this Kaju's business coming from? It comes from the fact that I wanted a diamond necklace and he didn't buy it for me. Right? So you can, whatever your thinking is, you have to match it to actual physical phenomena to know whether it is correct. And make a prediction. Make a prediction and see. So if he's very confused, then when the price of tomatoes go up, then he says, okay, now you cannot buy a single tomato. But then you can't cook food. So you say, okay, no, buy less tomatoes, which anyone would do, right? Does that make a person confused? So you have to match it to an actual phenomenon. Because what happens is we are all living in our heads. Physical phenomena, we just seem to ignore. Just ignore it. Everyone's just living in their heads. It's like there's no world only that they're living in. They're just living in the dream. Right? So therefore, all the time, match to actual physical phenomena. Okay, suppose you say, oh, the people over here are very unfriendly. Why do you say they're very unfriendly? Are they not friends with each other? No, they're very friendly with each other. Then why am I saying they are unfriendly? Because they're not being friendly with me. Okay, but have I done anything friendly towards them? No, I have ignored them all this time. Right? But then you go and talk to them and see what happens. No? So match to actual physical phenomena. Clear?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Then procrastination. Third one. So far, so good, right? We'll proceed. Na? Procrastination. We often use thinking to put off making a decision. We often use thinking to put off making a decision. Why are we thinking? Because we don't want to decide. Thinking becomes an excuse for procrastination. It is useful in such cases to have a thinking deadline. Thinking deadline means a decision. You have a decision you have to make a decision by a certain date. A cutoff time by which a decision has to be made. A bad decision is better than no decision. There is always a 50% chance that the decision won't turn out to be wrong. Whatever decision you take in this world, you have a 50% chance of being right. Please remember that at all times. So don't make a headache out of that decision. Besides, a bad decision teaches one something. Everyone says, no, experience is a very good thing. But how do you get the experience? Because you made all these bad decisions. So don't worry about the decisions. Bad decisions give you experiences. Experiences give you knowledge. No decision, on the other hand, is a bad thing. Because no decision is only stagnation. If one finds it difficult to make a decision, one can always appeal to a superior intellect. Okay? So, sometimes we do not make a decision. We use thinking as a method to avoid making any decision. That's a bad thing. So, make a decision. Any decision you make, you have got a 50% chance of being right. Don't worry about it. Don't give yourself too much of a headache. And if you feel it's absolutely impossible, then what can you do?
Take a help of somebody
Take the
who has
help.
a higher intellect.
Appeal to a higher intellect. That means somebody who knows more, has better discrimination in that area. For instance, if you have a stomach ache and you cannot decide what is wrong with you, you have to appeal to a higher intellect. Who will you go to?
A
Doctor.
doctor.
Will you go to your school principal for that? You don't say, oh, will you go to Einstein for that? Oh, he's a higher intellect. No, you go to the relevant higher intellect. Okay. Manoj, you're new to the class. First day. No, you are muted, so I can't hear what you're saying.
Hello, ma'am. Yes, it's my first day. One of my friend shared the link, so I've just joined.
Okay, great. Welcome. Which friend?
Reshma?
Oh, Reshma's your friend. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. She's your senior now. She's not just your friend anymore. But don't let her bully you, okay?
Okay.
All right. So, clear so far, Manoj? Anything, any confusion, or you're clear today? You jumped in at a pretty complex
Yeah,
time.
I was just running late. I thought let's not miss out.
But it's clear what's going on, right? Not
Can't
so
say I've
clear.
just jumped in between, so maybe I'll catch up with the
Okay.
past seconds. Yeah,
If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
sure.
So, clear about procrastination. What is what is this point? It is when you think so much that you are not making a decision. So, what do you do for it? Give yourself a what
Break.
happens?
Deadline.
Give yourself a break.
Deadline. Say, I am going to decide this by this date, so that you can't go on for the rest of your life. Okay. Now you say, no, even by that deadline, I can't. Then what do?
Appeal to superior intellect.
Appeal to a superior intellect in that field, always. That is understood. Don't say that person knows much more than me. My mother knows much more cooking than me, so I will ask her which career I have to take. No, that is not the right superior intellect. She has to know more about that field. Okay? Then, third one, another caution and reflection is greed. Greed. Did I miss anything here? 3 new messages there. Can we post 1 and 2 paragraphs? Post 1 and 2 paragraphs? Oh, you mean on the screen? Oh, okay. It might work to get a copy of the book, or on the group, maybe you can put it, otherwise you go backwards. No? Greed makes one indecisive. When one wants to eat one's cake and have it too, one is unable to decide. You are familiar with this statement, to eat one's cake and have it too. Eat it means you eaten it. Now you don't have it. Or if you have it, then you haven't eaten it. So when you want to eat it also and you want to have it also, have it means you save it also. This is an impossible thing, right? But when you want this, you are unable to decide. One is stuck between two mutually exclusive options because one wants both. Mutually exclusive means it is possible only to have one of the two. For instance, it's possible either to have the light on or the light off. These are your only two options. Now you want both on and off, then you will not be able to decide. So how do you solve this problem? One can try lateral thinking to see if any combination would be possible. Now, can you give me any examples?
In the case of a light or which you said off or on, you can maybe opt for a small battery operated light or a candle, something.
Okay, very good. What is this? Deepraj, wanting a wife who is both gharwali and career oriented. Okay, so you have to give a solution also. You can't just give us a problem. So what is your solution? Don't say I will become a Muslim and marry two. That is not an acceptable solution, I think. You have to say, I want a wife who's gharwali and career oriented. So why don't I consider living in a service apartment or having staff who takes care of this? Whatever.
Having someone who works out of the house.
Or someone who works out of the house. See, Malati is full of lateral thinking. So then, who else? Somebody else had raised their hand. Reshma, you had raised your hand?
Yeah. Wanting to set up Vedanta Academy and playing cricket. So you have a cricket team for the Vedanta Academy.
Very good. Yes. So anything, there has to be a way by which, there may be a way by which you can have your cake and eat it too, but you will have to think about it. Another real life example is Steve Jobs. He loved, obviously, he loved his IT, and he was a keen student also of calligraphy. So what happened eventually is, when he made the Apple, he made beautiful fonts for it because of his love of calligraphy. So you can do, there are ways in which you can do it, and you can try lateral thinking to be able to figure this thing out. But if you just stand there, say, I want to do this also, I want to do this also, then nothing is going to happen. Okay? Like people know in careers, they will start like this. I want to do IT also, I want to do calligraphy. Which career shall I take? Why don't you learn IT and why don't you learn calligraphy and you see where this goes? You don't have to constantly be choosing. It may be necessary, it may not be necessary. Think about it. Then with another caution. So what all have we done? Over-analysis, wrong analysis, procrastination, putting off decisions, greed, becoming indecisive, and then worry. People believe they are thinking when they're only worrying. If this appears to have gripped one, it's an idea to write down the worry. So mind is moving, but you think the intellect is working. You're just worrying, you're not doing anything useful in life. You're just, oh my God, if this happens, what will happen? And what about that? And what about that? And what about that? Like this, you'll go on for the rest of your life, there'll be no decision. So people think they are thinking when they're only worrying. I think a lot. What do you mean you think a lot? If you think a lot, then show us what you have done. Because thinking has to result in something. But there's no result we can ever see. We can only see people telling us that they are thinking. People believe they are thinking when they are only worrying. If this appears to have gripped one, it's an idea to write down the worry. So if this appears to be something that is bothering one, then one idea to consider is just write down what you're worrying about. Attempt solutions also in writing. What is this? New message. Suman Bhandari. Is this from a book? If so, which is it? Oh, is this your first class? Oh, sorry. Yes, it is from a book. This book, it's called How Do You Know What You Know? We're studying this book.
Okay, sorry, I came in between, so
No issues. You are
missed some
welcome.
classes, but wonderful to rejoin and understand a lot from you.
Wonderful.
So is this book available somewhere or
Yes. Where are you? Where are you?
in Delhi?
You're in Delhi. So I try to remember whether we have any copies there, but Amazon, it will be available. It's there on Kindle, it's there on Amazon, whatever you find.
Can I get a snap of this?
Snap. How
What do you call the book?
How do you know what you know? Look, can you see?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I've taken it. Thank you so much.
You could also ask who's the august author of this book. And the author of this book is Dr. Janki Santok, who you're listening
No.
to and admiring.
Yeah, I could understand it, so I didn't ask.
Good.
Okay, so Reshma's written the name down for you in the chat.
Right. Thank you so much.
So then, where were we? Worry, huh? People believe that they are thinking when they are only worried. So if this is the problem you think you face, write it down. Write down whatever the worry is and write down what according to you are the solutions. Okay, so suppose your worry is, I have to buy a new flat. I don't know whether to buy this one or that one. I don't know whether I should sell it and move to another place. I don't know whether I should stay in the city. Whatever your issue is, write it all down. Write down what according to you is the solution. Okay, up to this point, clear? Then,
thank you.
After this is done, physically close the book or put the paper or tablet in the drawer. Close it. You've written, you worried all you wanted, you put it down on paper. Now close it. If it's a book, close the book. If it's a paper or if you're doing it on your phone or your tablet, then please put that phone or tablet in the drawer and forget about it. This closes the issue. If you wish to worry some more, you can always open again and write some other time. You don't have, it's not a locked drawer. You have the key. You want to worry some more, please go there and write again. Promise yourself you will always write on that particular page, tablet when you worry. Sounds quite simple, no? Now you will say, so what is the use of this? The use of this is that when you close it, you're done with that issue. When you're done with that issue, remember we studied passive thinking? When you close it, your brain becomes capable of passive thinking. Passive thinking means you're not making any attempt to think. And under those conditions, sometimes answers just occur to us. But it will not occur if you keep on going on and on and on and on like that. So close it. Physically, when you close it, see, it's difficult at the mental level. Whenever things are difficult at the mental level, you have to bring them down to the which level?
Physical.
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 Because physical we must conquer first. Then only we can think of big mental things. Right? So first conquer that. Close the book. Close the drawer. Put off the tablet. Do physical stuff. And then it becomes easier. Now, one interesting thing that also happens when you do this is, you know what? When you go and you write a worry down, oh my God, suppose there is a function going to happen. Okay? There's some function that you are organizing, and you organized it open air. And because of climate change, you're worried that it may rain on that day. Then your whole function will be spoiled. Then you write over that. Suppose it rains on that day. What will I do? What will I do? What will I do? Write. If you have a solution, write that down also. Write down all your worries like that. Whatever we worry about, it's a very interesting thing that if you go back and you open those, suppose this week, whatever you're worrying about, you write. Next week, you open and read what all you worried about. 9 out of 10 of those things won't have happened. Oh, I'll get late for this meeting. Go write in your worry book. And then after some days, say, how many did I get late? What happened? You find 9 out of 10 things didn't happen. Oh, my son has not yet come home from school. I'm so worried. Where is he? What will have happened to him? Write it down. Then next week, when you see, you find I've been worrying unnecessarily. None of these things are happening. So we expend mental energy in unproductive things. So this belief of reflection, that I'm reflecting, is only not recognizing that we are doing unproductive thinking. So how do you deal with it? Write it down. Write down the problem according to you and write down the solution according to you. Then, 6th one. Focusing on oneself. During reflection, thinking of oneself is counterproductive. Okay, so now we've come back to if you're doing it properly. It's okay, you're doing morning study, let us say. Okay? And then you think of yourself during morning study. Like, oh, this happened to me, that happened to me, he said this to me, he said that to me, whatever. You suppose you're saying selfishness causes agitation. Then you say, okay, so that man was so selfish towards me. He's not agitated, whatever you're thinking. Or I was selfish and so I'm agitated, whatever you're thinking. But it's counterproductive to bring yourself into the equation. The idea of reflection, or why do we reflect? The idea is to forget the self, not exaggerate or entrench it. Objectivity is not possible for those whose focus is on themselves. Try thinking of an individual, him or her, rather than I. So if you find yourself saying too much I during the reflection process, replace it with the word an individual. Anyone. If I'm reflecting to find eternal truths, then the eternal truths are equally applicable to every human being. So best not to bring oneself into the reflection. When you're in reflection mode, do not think of yourself. Then 7. Excuse me.
Janki, can you elaborate a little more on how to not think of oneself, please? Because this is instinctive. Anything we read, we tend to see it or think about it in terms of the experiences I have had.
Yeah. So in those experiences, just don't say I. Say individual. Say people. Say whatever, humans. So you think of, suppose you say, let's take the same one, selfishness causes agitation. So then you say, yes, I remember when I was selfish that day, I got agitated. Instead of saying that, say, in that situation, us individual thinking like this gets agitated in that type of situation.
But then how will I mean, that's what, if I say that, then it doesn't seem to have much impact. Like reflection normally just tends to become about the experiences I've had. Like even if I'm thinking of a story, say from the Mahabharata or something, but it doesn't seem to be that effective in understanding or absorbing that idea, except when
Correct. What you're saying is right. You have to relate it back to your actual experience. That is natural. Because if it is not something you have experienced, you're not going to be able to go from that experience to that learning. Much is correct. But don't talk about it in reflection with yourself as the focus. Suppose you say, okay, that day I told Anshul that he should give something to his grandmother, and he didn't give that something to his give an apple to his grandmother, and he didn't give the apple to his grandmother, and so I was very upset. Okay, suppose this is your recollection of some event. So you say that in that example, a person who had this particular desire would get agitated. But if a person had another kind of desire, then they would not get agitated, whatever. As long you take that same experience, but don't make yourself the focus of it. Otherwise, when you're thinking, you're reflecting, you just become more and more self-centered.
Yes, that is true. So, okay. So this is, this is really helpful, but it's just, there are these two things. One is it makes me understand the concept more, but then it also makes me think too much about only myself.
Yeah. So take the same example, take the same feelings, take the same everything. So basically, you have to take whatever is going to help you grow and get rid of everything that is not going to help you grow. So any thought of yourself is not going to help you grow, but that experience is going to help you because you're going to learn out of it. So use that.
Okay.
But you don't have to bring yourself, I this, I that. Reduce if it's not possible, or whatever. Reduce it to whatever extent possible.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that.
Janki ji, just a comment on what Maumita observed. I think the point that she made, that when you are thinking of an incident in the reflection mode about yourself, then the impact is a lot more. And that should not get compromised in this third party attribution. So my only comment would be, I think the spirit behind saying that we should not be thinking and reflecting with us at the center is that there is a very strong tendency to mentally wander away. Like you said, that person, kind of upset me and agitated me. Then I'll say, but he's always doing it. And this time it was very unfair. So because it is personalized, we tend to wander off. So long as we remember that this is in the reflection mode and this is not freewheeling, thinking and that kind of a thing, then I will pull myself back to the issue at hand that I am reflecting with that incident which involves me. So I think the principle of staying away from mental wandering is the important one if you want to still involve yourself so that you can get the full impact. That would be my comment.
Okay, but that's not what's being said. What is being said is, you're right that it tends to mental involvement, but even if you didn't tend to mental involvement, even then the thought of yourself is deadly for you as far as your spiritual sadhana goes. So it will always be discouraged. Any thought of myself is just like putting poison in my system. And when I'm reflecting, I'm using my most powerful equipment. So not a good idea, because now I'm entrenching it. And my mind is doing it anyway, but the mind is a foolish fellow. He's all superficial, right? But when the intellect does something, you can you can make a bad thing really bad when the intellect gets involved. Just like, you can pull down you hate people and that's your mind, and you just grumble about them or you shout at them. When intellect gets involved, you bring down the world towers. So be extremely careful that at that point, no, I'm not thinking of myself at all. I mean, not that you're saying I am not thinking of myself, but you do everything in your capacity to keep the thought of self away. But using that feeling, using that experience, using the teaching value of that experience. Yeah, Pravesh?
Mom, it
Yeah,
is
thank
like
you.
it is like just a natural acceptance, means that it is not belongs to me individually, but it belongs to everyone, means everyone is a victim of this materialistic nature. We should have to think like that.
Yes, it is a human tendency. This everyone or people or individuals, use any word, but don't think of yourself. Don't focus it on yourself.
Thank you, ma'am.
So does that mean generalize the personalized thing to understand?
That's right. Generalize to personal. Move it to general from personal.
Right.
Raj, but isn't the intellect inherently objective? Yes, the intellect is inherently objective, but it is always impacted by all this. The mind is doing its own story also, no? And the mind all says something, and we'll study about this when we do the happiness book, that at one stage of intellectual development, the intellect's role is only to get for the mind what the mind wants. It's not developed enough to decide what should be wanted. So inherently true, but grades of intellect. Okay.